Hello everybody. So I thought I'd take you along with me as I do a final check on the jigging of this project. I've got a couple or 3 hours into jigging. I believe it's done. All the adjustment screws are locked in place, ready to carve. I'm just going to go around one more time. This is, I forget, about a $500 piece of wood, so I don't want to screw it up. Actually, I wouldn't want to screw up any piece of wood. This project is for an Air Arms S510, and it's got a shape that's reminiscent of the Air Arms stocks with this reverse curve on the back side of the comb, which means this is not an ambidextrous stock, and I'm always a little concerned about doing that. In fact, somebody was over here recently that was lefty and shot the S510 with its factory stock because it's ambidextrous. You know, a regular Monte Carlo that's got a big comb on one side and the rollover, that rollover is basically a little tiny comb, which is all you need to fit on the face. So a Monte Carlo stock is in many senses an ambidextrous stock, but clearly this won't be. But it's real comfortable. It fits me. This project is for me. It's a warm-up for a very expensive project I'm going to do immediately after. I just want to make sure that I was, totally on point with my skill and didn't make any mistakes. So a couple of things I've got going on here. Let's see if you can see this. Not quite. So in the stylus holder and in the router, I have these pointy bits that I turned, and I've got them set here on my level datum to be at the same height. And I'm going to go along and check and make sure that there is wood to carve. At this end, I've got them locked in a 90-degree position. This is the normal connecting rod between the two rotating wheels. And then I've got these bars here, goes from the center of one wheel to the periphery of the other, from the center of that wheel to the periphery of its other wheel. I think you can just make that out, which locks these in place perfectly at 90 degrees. So I'm going to go along here and check that indeed there is a ton of wood to carve. And excuse me while I mess with this sheet, which protects some of my trade secrets. Not that they're very secret, and I am very likely at some point to just show everything about it. Because what am I going to do? Take it to my grave? And how many people really want to work for $10 an hour doing this work? Not too many. So I do just barely have wood to carve. This is typically one of the close spots, and obviously there's plenty of wood there. So now I'm going to undo these so that we can turn. And they will be going right back on again here in a few minutes as I prepare to carve. So come around over here to the sideways position. We're going to use the connecting bar. And again, we're just going to go along and check that there is space on the master. In other words, wood to carve. And that's pretty close, but there is wood to carve. And all along here, there is wood. The palm swell is the next close place on those projects. And I actually have plenty of room there. And then this crazy reverse curve rollover is very close, but there is wood to carve. And then down here on the buttstock, there is wood to carve. I'll go around to the other side. Plenty of wood. I could have sent some wood over to the other side, but it fits, and here the cheek piece here is always the other close section, and where it's close, but there is wood to carve, so that's all good. And then the final chuck is on the bottom. And clearly we got plenty of wood to carve here. This is usually a pretty close spot here and up here. and we do have wood to carve. So now I'm going to get it rotated back around top side, get things braced up, get the router configured, and I will then cut the inletting. So I will be back with you in about 15 minutes once I'm ready to cut. Okay, I'm back. I got things set again. Now I used to, and sometimes after it's all jigged, roll it over so they're flat, trace the outline of the master and scribe a scratch mark with one of those pointy styluses on the blank, and then take the blank out of the machine to the bandsaw, cut off that extra material, and then put it back in the machine, and then run through and make sure it's jigged properly again. And frankly, the last few years, I've just been allowing the wood to go to waste, because frankly those cut-offs, I used to store them, boxes of them, and they end up getting thrown out. And yeah, they're pretty. Maybe I could sell them on eBay for people that make pens, but it just isn't worth the effort. And you're going to see this 3.5 horsepower router pretty well just melts the wood. And maybe it takes a little longer than if I had cut off the excess, but when you factor in the other time of jigging and rejigging, I'm just going to cut the wood. So here I am, ready to go. Important thing is to make sure this guy is right side up in relation to this, and I didn't get it backwards. I've got the master locked to the side of the machine because the torque when cutting the wood will pull the stylus against the master and cause the master to flex, and then you got some messed up inletting. So this is locked to the side of the machine like this. I used to lock it with the wood also, but that was kind of a function of the trimming the excess wood so it would clear this connecting rod. The connecting rod used to go all the way across the machine and hold both pieces. And then as I was getting frustrated by how much time it took to take this out of the machine and cut that extra material off, I realized that actually only the master needs to be locked into position. It's the one that gets pulled from the torque. And so that was really significantly saved me time. In addition, there's a half 20 all-thread rod coming up through the bottom here with a high-density polyethylene piece I turned that goes on the end. And this is a quill stop from a Bridgeport milling machine that engages this rod, so it makes it pretty quick to adjust its height. And you'll see I use this all throughout the carving process. This is only used for inletting the top and bottom. So here we go, we're going to flatten this. So I set the router bit to have a big gap, and I'm using a chunk of aluminum, maybe it's about 1/4 inch or a little more than that, just to get that rough cutting done, and then I'll go over it maybe 2 or 3 more passes getting down closer. And I'm going to leave, I don't know, I'll see how I feel at the time, but maybe about 40 thou extra material so I have something to put on the belt sander afterwards. Okay, get ready for noise.
get you in a little closer.
Alright, well, I'm still somewhat new working in this shop and overdid the surge protecting power strip that the router's plugged into up in the ceiling. So I'm going to rewire it with a direct connection to a load carrying capable circuit, and I'll be back with you in a little bit. Okay, got that resolved. Reran the power to a dedicated circuit, not dedicated, but one with more oomph. Of course, that means I displaced the power cord for another tool. I'll deal with that later. But now, maybe we can continue to put some horsepower into this wood.
Get ready for noise.
It would be cool to come up with a some kind of rubber deflector sheet that would hang down here. I've thought about it before. I should maybe cut one and just play with it. I got a ton of rubber sheet, but you know, this height is always changing with different bits and different angles. I don't know. It's worth considering. It sure throws the chips aft, but they're easy to clean. They're big. All right, so now I'm gonna work my way down, and I think the feeler gauge got buried. So I use a feeler gauge to set underneath the router bit to leave extra wood. And ultimately we're going to be looking for maybe 30 or 40 thou of extra wood, depending upon how I feel at the time. But right now I just want to do another pass that's going to be about half of what I already did. And I think that piece got buried. Well, I know where it was. Just don't know where my piece went. Of course, that's how I know what it was. It doesn't matter that I buried my chunk of aluminum. I make this adjustment with the head tilt set to perpendicular to the datum. I think I'll leave a little more wood. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, you know, I think I'll just do this much. So now I come back over here, and it's one of the characteristics of the geometry of the machine that as it travels up a hill, the angle is going to change. And so when I'm rough cutting, I can just set the flattening stylus to be square to the top of the forearm in the middle of the forearm. It's going to be a little off one way at this end, a little off the other way at this end. When I'm rough cutting, it just doesn't matter. And then when I get down to my final cut, I'm going to set it flat here and cut it until it starts to come up, reset it, and maybe 2 resets, so I got pretty flat cut. Although ultimately, like I said, I'm leaving 30 or 40 thou to take off with the belt sander, so I don't know that it matters, but if you're capable of doing something perfect, why do less, right? Okay, here we go.
Sometimes you have to control the material.
So I guess I don't know if you could have seen on the back side when I was cutting the admittedly wrong way, but you know, usually it's fine, but when I was cutting that way, it was, you know, and that's the direction the router bit's going, like it could rip the wood out, and sometimes it doesn't, but it was kind of ripping a strip. So then I came in from the other side until I cleared off the ripped strip, And then I went back to doing it just back and forth and saw now it's going to rip again, cleaned it up again, and then you saw the solution I did was I took a pass on the back side, and then I can cut both ways, and take a pass on the back side and make a cut both ways. And you know, these are little details that are difficult to remember until you see how the material is working. And that's why I wanted to do a warm-up before I do the client project, just to kind of put a bunch of these little details back in my memory. Guess I could write a book or have a YouTube channel. How about that? All right, so we're gonna make another pass, and then I'm gonna, so really I only need one, probably more pass to get it down to the final, and then I'm gonna jig it up to cut the inletting. So I'll give a few minutes break on my recording time and be back shortly.